So I started, my first sport I actually played was baseball.
Wow.
And baseball was my first love, actually. And I, kind of now looking back on it, kind of maybe wish I stuck with it a little bit because I'd probably still be playing right now. You know what I'm saying? Like baseball, they not getting
Woo!
hit like they get hit in football. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't. There's something, I was actually thinking about this, man. There's just something psychologically crazy about a person that wants to go and pursue football and get beat up and hit and just, all kinds of crazy stuff because it's a
But
crazy game. But
yeah, and it's
I
definitely, but it's gotten safer for the fellas. I mean, you can say that
it's
over the
got
years, because I remember looking at some old football stuff, and people used to get like
whew,
by the neck.
tattooed.
Yes, if
Oh
they had
yeah.
hair, their hair got pulled. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah,
But
I mean, they
listen,
made it safer.
we got the UFC now, but before UFC, there was an NFL. Back in the '80s and the '70s, where that was the original UFC, where they was just tattooing people. But
Yeah.
um, but so I got introduced through football. I think I became a fan of the sport as a little kid, watching the sport on TV. Some of the guys that I grew up watching, Barry Sanders,
Yes.
Deion Sanders, a lot of those legends, guys like that, inspired me to play football. And when I
Mm.
would see, when I would watch Deion Sanders, especially when he was in college and he would just go back and return punts and he would have the whole crowd hyped up, or Barry Sanders would make a move on somebody in the open field and literally like make him look stupid, like those things just, it caught your attention.
Yes.
When you watch those kinds of athletes on TV, they take your attention away from whatever you're focused on, and you
Mm.
have to pay attention to them and you have to watch them because there's something spiritual, to the way that they're playing, and something spiritual to the way that, they are able to recreate the game like right before your eyes. And so for me,
Yes.
watching guys like that, was a real treat for me. And I grew up with not a lot of knowledge about football until I started
Mm.
playing. But once I started playing, I mean, it was just like everything clicked because when I was very young and in school, elementary, and as I was growing up, I would get in trouble a lot
Mm.
because I had a lot of energy and I was very smart, and teachers didn't really know what to do with me because I was all over the place and you couldn't
Wow.
sit me down, and you couldn't, um, you know, I didn't want to take naps when I was little. Like I just wanted to run and go play. You know what I mean? In elementary school, and so back in that time period, school was a lot different.
Yes.
Teachers, were a lot different, and so
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't know a lot. They didn't know how to handle me as a young black kid. And so my mom, so they would tell my mom that I should be prescribed ADD, ADHD medicine.
Really?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Wow,
Just
that is crazy.
teachers not knowing, you know what I mean, and not
Right.
understanding, what they're dealing with. And so
How
my
did your mother
mom,
deal with that?
she ignored them. So she didn't listen to him. And once she started to see me in sports, she saw,
Mm.
okay, this is the thing that that I started to love. And then once I found football, it was like everything else made sense for me because I found a way to harness that energy, and I found a way to utilize it in a positive way, which was on the football field. And that became, my artistic outlet. That became, the place where that was my canvas, for a very long time.
So you
And
stopped playing baseball and completely dedicated yourself to
stopped.
football?
I don't know why I did that. But my mom, she all she knew was that I loved football. And so she never thought that, hey, maybe, we should still keep him doing these other sports because he can still do both, right?
Right.
Because baseball and football are in two different seasons. And so, but for me, I was like, no, I just want to play football because I fell in love with the game. But obviously there was a passion there was a purpose there. And
Mm-hmm.
so it worked out, right? Because football was my plan A. Like I didn't have a plan B, I didn't have a plan C.
Mm.
So football had to work out. Like I didn't have no choice but for football to work out because that was what I wanted to do. And it's funny because sometimes when I get a chance to speak to kids, that's always one of the messages that I'm just very cautious to tell them because
Mm-hmm.
listen, not everybody's going to play football at the end of
That's
the
right.
day, right? Not everybody's going to be able to play 15, you know, 10, 15 years in the league. And so,
Mm.
but I do think that there is something to dedicating yourself to one craft. right? Like you can
Absolutely.
give yourself many options in that one craft. And that's what I did. And that's where the difference lies is football was my only plan A, but within that plan A, I gave myself a multitude of options, to be successful. And
So
so,
where
and
did
that was the
you
difference.
so where did you develop your ability to be successful? Where did that come from? Did that come from your parents? Did it come from your teachers or your
Yeah.
mentors?
So on the football field, that kind of became the place for me, was kind of my escape from the things that were going on at home that I didn't love. So my mom and my stepdad, had a very up and down relationship, and there was a lot of
Mm.
arguments, and there was a lot of hostility in the house. And then when I would go see my dad was, um, kind of, how do I explain my dad in a nice way? I'm trying to explain it in a great way, but there were just things that I saw from them that really affected me as a young kid. But then there was also that missing, father in my life that I truly needed. Like I said, my real dad lived in LA, so I only got a chance to see him, a handful of times, growing up. Now, I wish I could have saw him more, and wish I could have
Yes.
had him more in my life growing up. But at the end of the day, um, what it did was it allowed me to go on the football field, and a lot of the men on the football field and the coaches kind of became that father figure for me, so to
Okay.
speak. And so that's kind of where that came from.